Shabbat Shalom. In just a few weeks, we will celebrate Purim, a holiday that commemorates Jewish self-preservation against the genocidal threat of a Persian madman. How sad it is that now, more than 2,500 years later, we Jews are once again seeking to thwart the genocidal threat of Persian madmen. Thank God Haman didn't have nuclear weapons. Please God, today's Persian country of Iran won't have them either. For several years now, the Western world has attempted through a variety of measures to prevent Iran from developing its nuclear technology into weaponry. Several Iranian nuclear physicists believed to be working on developing the bombs have been assassinated. A year and a half ago, a computer virus penetrated Iran's nuclear facilities and devastated their infrastructure. The Stuxnet virus, presumed to be a joint U.S.-Israel project, destroyed roughly 20% of Iran's nuclear centrifuges by causing them to spin out of control. Additionally, an international embargo against Iran has also been in place for a number of years. The U.S. State Department explains, in response to Iran's continued illicit nuclear activities, the United States and other countries censure Iran and prevent its further progress in prohibited nuclear activities, as well as attempt to persuade Tehran to address the international community's concerns about its nuclear program. Acting both through the United Nations Security Council and regional or national authorities, the United States, the member states of the European Union, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Canada, Australia, Norway, Switzerland, and others have put in place a strong interlocking matrix of sanctions, measures relating to Iran's nuclear, missile, energy, shipping, transportation, and financial sectors. Reading that on the State Department's website, I'm reminded of a comment a couple years ago by the then late-night show comedian, host, Jay Leno. France and Germany warned Iran not to pursue their nuclear research program, Leno explained. In fact, France and Germany warned Iran that if they did not stop their program, they would, warn them again. While computer viruses, targeted assassinations, and embargoes have slowed Iran's progress in developing their nuclear technology, it has hardly dissuaded them from continuing. Now the United States and other countries are engaged in negotiations with Iran to prevent, or at least further delay, Iran's development of nuclear weapons technology. Like the United States, Israel maintains serious concerns about a nuclear Iran. After all, Iranian leaders have in the past called for the very destruction of Israel. Yet it was still a surprise when back in January, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives John Boehner of Ohio invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to speak before Congress. After all, typically invitations like this are made by and to leaders at parallel levels of government. That is to say, one would expect the President to invite the Prime Minister and the Speaker of the House to invite a legislative head, not a national leader. Additionally, it is uncommon for a foreign head of government to address the U.S. legislature in this way. And finally, the invitation from Speaker of the House Boehner came just a day after President Obama's State of the Union, a clear power play by one political party against another. Given all the unusual circumstances surrounding the invitation to Prime Minister Netanyahu to speak, it is much less surprising that the Prime Minister accepted the offer. Mr. Netanyahu plans to address our government on March 3rd, a mere 2 weeks before Israeli elections. As we all know, everyone is asking the question, should Prime Minister Netanyahu speak before Congress? On one hand, if he's successful, Netanyahu could almost single-handedly save the Jewish state from the threat of a nuclear Iran. A modern-day Mordechai convincing King Ahasuerus to punish the evil Haman. On the other hand, the Prime Minister risks further weakening his and Israel's relationship with President Obama. Moreover, nearly 24 congressmen have written to Congressman Boehner asking him to delay Mr. Netanyahu's speech, and other congressmen have said they simply would not show up if the Prime Minister were given the opportunity to address Congress. To do so, they and others argue, threatens to weaken what is currently broad, bipartisan support for the State of Israel. What then should the Prime Minister do? I've been wrestling with the issue myself for several weeks, trying to view it through the lens of Jewish values that ought to guide our every decision. First and foremost, Iran developing nuclear weapons. I feel the same way about the issue. First and foremost, Iran developing nuclear weapons is a clear existential threat to the State of Israel and the Jewish people. When such a threat to life is realized, Jewish law demands that action be taken. At minimum, the Jewish value pikuach nefesh, saving a life, permits nearly every mitzvah to be broken to ensure the preservation of life. Moreover, the great medieval Rabbi Maimonides, his code of Jewish law explains that in the event of a milchemet mitzvah, a war of self-defense to protect the very existence of Israel, nearly any measure may be employed to achieve victory. Given the imminent threat to the State of Israel and its Jewish citizens, there is no doubt in my mind that every method of preventing the development of Iran's nuclear arsenal ought to be put in place. If Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech were to convince the American government and the American people that Iran must be stopped and stopped now, then I would support his speech without reservation. If I actually believe Netanyahu were Mordechai and Congress King Ahasuerus, then by all means I would support the Prime Minister's speech. Unfortunately, and I recognize that my opinion might make me unpopular, given the political realities of the March 3rd date, I worry that if the Prime Minister were to speak before Congress, then it might actually weaken Congress's bipartisan support for Israel. The speech would certainly further pollute Mr. Netanyahu's relationship, and I use that word loosely, his relationship with Mr. Obama, and thus could weaken Israel's standing in the world. In the Scroll of Esther, King Ahasuerus sought to reward Mordechai out of gratitude for saving the king's life. In our own times, President Obama and other U.S. and world leaders hardly feel the same about Prime Minister Netanyahu. Just as there are clear Jewish values that might support the Prime Minister's address before Congress, so too are there Jewish values that suggest otherwise. In the Mishnah's Pirkei Avot, the great sage Hillel teaches us, be like Moses' brother, the high priest Aaron, Ohev Shalom, Verodef Shalom, a lover of peace and a pursuer of peace. This does not mean to backpedal from the threat of a nuclear Iran. It does mean, however, that in Israel's relationship with its most important ally, the United States, we win more flies with honey than with vinegar. In addition, there's a Talmudic dictum that in order to preserve the strength and continuity of the Jewish people, sometimes we must treat our neighbors with an elevated level of care and concern mipnei darchei shalom, for the sake of peace. Despite the United States President's lukewarm relationship with Israel, we must keep our eyes on the big picture. Congress and the American people look quite favorably upon the State of Israel right now. Do we really want to threaten that standing by taking a gamble that a single speech by an Israeli Prime Minister, loaded with political implications, might somehow change the nature of the world's stance vis-a-vis a nuclear Iran? We Jews cannot afford to gamble with Israel's security. Not long ago, an Israeli archaeologist was digging in the Negev desert and came upon a casket containing a mummy a rather rare occurrence in Israel, to say the least. After examining it, he called Abe, the curator of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. "I've just discovered a 3,000-year-old mummy of a man who died of heart failure," the excited scientist exclaimed. Abe replied, "Bring him in. We'll check it out." A week later, the amazed Abe called the archaeologist. "You were right both about the mummy's age and his cause of death. How in the world did you know?" "Easy. There was a piece of paper in his hand that said, 'I've got 10,000 shekels on the man they call Goliath.'" We cannot gamble with Israel's future. I love Israel with all my heart, and I believe she has every right to live in peace and security. The state of Israel has not only a political right to defend itself, but a biblical mandate to do so. We share in that biblical mandate to protect Israel, and we must do everything in our power to keep her safe. A nuclear Iran is a clear threat to the state of Israel. But I do not believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu, speaking before Congress in this environment, will do anything to strengthen Israel. If anything, I believe it will only weaken her. In this tense political climate, when Mr. Netanyahu calls me to ask my advice, I will tell him, "Adon Rosh HaMemshala, Mr. Prime Minister, Mibnei Darchei Shalom, for the sake of peace, be like Aaron, Ohev Shalom, a Rodef Shalom, a lover of peace and a pursuer of peace. Peace with the broadest cross-section of American leadership. This is the best strategic approach for you as Prime Minister of Israel." Mr. Prime Minister, it is not your job alone to speak to Congress and to the President, to warn them of the dangers of a nuclear Iran. It's my job, and it's your job, the job of everyone sitting here, and the job of everyone who wants peace in the world, to call upon Congress, to call upon the President, and to say, we cannot let Iran have nuclear capabilities. We cannot let Haman turn his sword into a nuclear bomb. That all being said, I also think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is a shrewd politician. When he calls, I would advise him that he should leverage every ounce out of this controversy to force the United States government to better support Israel and to further the world campaign against Iran's nuclear program. Should Mr. Netanyahu then decide to opt out of the speech the day before it is to occur, that would be just fine with me. I'll look forward to that phone call and let you know how it goes. Just as we will in a week and a half, the Jewish people have celebrated Purim for more than 2,500 years, giving thanks to God that Esther and Mordecai thwarted the evil efforts of the Persian Haman. In our own day and age, may God bless both the United States of America and the state of Israel with peace and with security. And may our Heavenly Parent guide our leaders with the wisdom and courage to prevent yet another Haman from threatening the Jewish people. Adonai Oz Amo Yitain, Adonai Yivarech et Amo Bashalom. May God give those who are in strategic positions the strength to combat a nuclear Iran. May God bless us all with peace. Let us say together, Amen, and Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel, should live now and forever.
Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Olavinu, Olavinu, Olavinu Chai. Olavinu, Olavinu, Olavinu Chai. Olavinu, Olavinu, Olavinu Chai. Olavinu Chai.
Amen. Page 155, the Chasi Kaddish before our Musaf service.